Humans aren't born out of laying around on their asses. We're the dominant species. We built all this. We're powerful and we're beautiful and we're ready to build the next level of civilization in God's plan. If you love God and you want to build a pro-human future, you must become the victor. But you have to believe in yourself first. This is the truth, and everyone knows it.
Ladies and gentlemen, however much you may think that you hate or despise these people that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm here to tell you it's not enough. So we're going to watch a video called Valve is in Trouble. This is on Asmongold Clips channel on YouTube. And this video you're going to want to sit down for because it is the perfect, and I mean perfect, encapsulation of the people and the politics of those that embrace this disgusting cult-like ideology that I've been talking about for years. And everything in this video is what I vehemently and proudly stand against. So I want you to just listen to the opening, then I'm going to pause it and give you my feedback. But I think before I go any further, I need to show you this clip so that you don't think that I'm just talking out my ass. Because it is so outrageous and so ridiculous that I would forgive you for thinking that this was some sort of clickbait or some sort of salacious material. But no, you need to hear this for yourself.
Valve has a diversity crisis. Uh-oh.
I can't tell you how many women work at Valve, or people of colour, or non-binary folks, or those who identify as LGBTQ, or disabled people, because, well, Valve is a private company, and it doesn't need to disclose those numbers, and also it didn't respond to our own requests for those figures.
So I'm going to actually play this one more time, because I think that this is so crucially important. This guy, whose eyes are way too far apart, he looks like some kind of creature from myth, is coming before you and saying, I can't tell you the diversity quotas of Valve because they're a private company and they don't release them. And also, they didn't respond to our inquiry. So this freak took the time to try to interrogate Valve about what their employee makeup is based on, what did he say? Disability, race, like the most immutable characteristics. And this guy says that's the most important thing. You should have numbers on those. That is absolutely sick. And it should be something that every person with a brain and a heart and a soul opposes with every fiber of their being.
Crisis. Uh-oh.
I can't tell you how many women work at Valve, or people of colour, or non-binary folks, or those who identify as LGBTQ, or disabled people, because, well, Valve is a private company, and it doesn't need...
Well, I would actually argue that a lot of those LGBTQ women and people of color, you know, you could just add the disability in any one of those. It's, you know, you may not like it, but it seems to be true.
Need to disclose those numbers, and also it didn't respond to our own requests for those figures. However,
Why would they? I mean, if somebody's asking for those figures, they're only doing it in order to create a narrative that you're doing something wrong. Like,
yeah. So Valve is going to waste time to give you numbers so that you can make a stupid YouTube video or a stupid bit of content so that you could run down the company and say that they're not enough. Whatever number that you would have gotten because you're a freak and because you have the eyeballs of a hammerhead shark, you would have said, well, that's not enough. There are too many white people here. That's what you would have said. That would have been your narrative because you're not looking at the success of the company, the end result, what's going on. You are looking for a cause. You're looking for a crusade. And the reality is that if you can't find one, you'll just make one. So it doesn't matter that this company is successful. It's doing very, very well. In your eyes, it's a failure because they haven't bought in hook, line, and sinker to your disgusting, hideous worldview, which is predicated on immutable characteristics. You're going to be a savior, And you're going to champion and go to bat for all those different, alphabet letters and all those different mental illnesses. You're going to go to bat, and all those minorities that need you to save them, you're going to go to bat for them, because any company that doesn't agree with you and doesn't agree with your worldview is bad or evil or nefarious. Because they don't bow down to the cult that you subscribe to, basically to satiate your own ego, because it's something that you feel that you can latch onto because you're weak, because you don't have the ability to create content on your own. You have to try to latch onto something and find enough other losers to latch onto that thing as well, so that you could all be losers together and create some kind of coalition that you think gives you power in your mind. It makes you weak, it makes you pathetic, and ultimately we're laughing at you, and we're also going to admonish you and bully you a little bit because what you're saying is absolutely evil, immoral, and wrong. No company should have quotas. No company should have quotas. Simple as.
Would they? I mean, if somebody's asking for those figures, they're only doing it in order to create a narrative that you're doing something wrong. Like, how could there ever be a single positive to sharing that information?
Multiple interviewees that we spoke to described the company as having an enormous lack of diversity, extremely white and extremely male.
Sounds pretty good. Must be why they're successful. But you like the way that we talk to people and they said I have a lack of diversity. I'll tell you what, a lack of diversity sounds pretty good. I mean, the results, they don't lie. Valve is one of the most beloved and successful companies as it relates to PC gaming. So while you're trying to frame it as a negative, I could just turn it around and say, that must be a positive. Maybe there's a correlation here. But see, I would not normally make that sort of argument, but for it to rebut your radical, extremist, dogmatic, racist ideology. You do more harm to your own cause by being like you are and framing the argument as you do. You radicalize more people than you can possibly imagine by taking the position that there is something wrong with being white and being male. There isn't. There's also nothing wrong with being normal, not being a mentally ill freak, not being a victim, not being perpetually in this realm of I'm oppressed, and also being straight. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's normal. That's what you should aspire to be. I attribute this sort of LGBTQ diversity stuff to the same thing as the fat acceptance movement. It's not normal to be fat. It's not normal to be LGBTQ. Instead of just accepting yourself as you are, you should work towards improving yourself in a number of different ways. And the thing is, I don't begrudge anyone who has certain proclivities or certain things. You can say, well, that's how I was born. True. There are many people that are born in many different ways. And the whole thing about, reading the Bible, which I think that everyone should do, one of the things that it says is it doesn't begrudge you for having sins. It doesn't. It doesn't begrudge you for having sins. What it begrudges you is alienating yourself based on those sins, identifying yourself based on those sins, and choosing to embrace them as something to aspire to rather than something that should be identified as wrong and rejected and work towards improving yourself every day.
There have been efforts made over the years by various employees who've pushed to make Valve more representative. However, I'm told these efforts are largely blocked by either the company's structure or its leadership.
Sounds pretty good.
If that effort was being blocked and there was an effort to hire a person that was black and it was being blocked by the nature of the fact that the person was black, Valve would be in a massive discrimination lawsuit and they would have to pay out millions, if not billions of dollars.
No, Asman, you're looking at this the wrong way. No, there was an effort to hire people because they weren't white. So it's the inverse of what you're saying. So these people come in and say, you need to hire people who aren't white, and Valve said no. We're not going to do that. Which ironically, would open them up to litigation, because if you are not hiring people because, well, they're too white, that's discrimination. That's racism. You can't do that. But if you're hiring people that are the best for the job and they just so happen to all be white and male, that would tell you that they're doing the right thing and that they're hiring based on what they think will make the end result the best for everyone at the company. And guess what? They seem to be doing a pretty darn good job. Now, are they perfect? No. But, their policies, in my experience, are almost always on the side of the player. Like their policy about returning digital games. Like, usually what will happen is a company will release some dog shit, half-baked, incomplete game, and people will want to return it, and the company will say no, and Steam will be like, okay, sure. Okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, just go ahead and return it. Which I think is incredibly based.
Yeah, that it's just that simple.
It used to be that there were maybe 10 or 15% women in the development teams, but definitely now I think they've dipped below that point.
Well, you've created an arbitrary criteria point, and then you've said you have to meet this criteria point. Right. Who decided that? You did. You don't.
Who decided that? Quoting my boy Escanor. That's true. You created an arbitrary, completely irrelevant quota. Oh, there used to be 15% women. Now they've dipped below that. Well, first of all, if they've dipped below that, then obviously the people that they let go weren't doing the job appropriately or weren't producing to the standard in which they, as a company, wanted. And they brought in more people to replace them. If that happened to be men, then this person on screen, Magets Yub. What's the value in diversity? That's a good question. I don't think there is any value in diversity. I don't think there is any value in diversity. I think there's none. I think it's actually a negative. I think diversity is a negative word. Because the way that these people utilize it is not based on what different can you bring to the table. They judge it on, you have to view people by their immutable characteristics. So if there's a company and it's 99% white, to these people that's a problem. Why? Because they're racist. Because their worldview, their entire power structure that they cling to is predicated on, we have to have a problem to discuss. Otherwise, what are we even doing here? These people don't have the competence or the talent to make content that people want to watch on their own. So they believe if they gather enough of these retards together that have this sort of grievance, that, oh, there's not enough of this or this or this, then they can force these companies into doing what they want, and Valve has told them no. And I gotta say, it's pretty damn based. I appreciate Valve more than when I started watching this video. Telling these freaks no and to get out and ignoring them and not feeding into their BS is absolutely amazing.
Work at Valve, you're not in charge of them. What is this? Valve's estimated profit per employee is around $19 million, making it one of the highest per employee profit figures among major tech companies. What they're doing works, and it outperforms all other people that are in the space. Hired on merit. Yeah, you always hire on merit. If you're not hiring on merit, you're setting yourself up to fail.
The higher up you go, the whiter and male it becomes.
Good. The implication here is that being white is somehow a problem. If you replace the word of the people that you are trying to replace with the word of people that you think are protected, would your statement be bad? And
yeah. Well, so understand, these are not principled people. You're not going to get them on the, you're a hypocrite though, because these people, I mean, their politics is based on ever shifting sand. They're saying this because they think, well, in their circles, it does make them sound good. And their circles, it does make them sound good. Now, for the rest of the world, they look like evil, deranged idiots. They look like absolute mongoloid retards. And so we can acknowledge that and we can identify that, and they are hypocrites, don't get me wrong, but they don't respond to, oh, you're a hypocrite, because they don't care enough. They don't actually care enough. They don't actually care about this at all. This is a means to an end to them. Which is why, if a black person opposes what they're talking about, these people suddenly become the most racist people on the planet. I cannot... It's like those people that are like the nice guys for girls. Like, oh, I'm not like those other guys. I'm like really, really nice. And then the girl rejects them and they turn into an absolute monster. That is what we're dealing with here. Oh, I'm in favor of the minorities. And that if the minorities get too quote unquote uppity, these people will absolutely tear them down. Well, you're trying to run off the plantation? We don't tolerate that. We're going to have to break your foot. These people are genuinely the worst human beings I've ever seen. And every person who is sane and sentient and has a heart and has a soul opposes wokeness and identity politics and everything that these people believe in or stand for with every fiber of their being.
And if the answer is yes, then your statement is not theoretically bad, it is just simply bad.
That compounds the issue, because part of making any field more diverse is that you have to start introducing diversity into it. Valve's not going to be...
Well, I don't think I feel like the entire premise of this is that it's a problem or that it's necessary.
The whole premise is faulty. The entire premise is faulty.
I don't think diversity is something that is a good or a bad thing.
I disagree with that, Esmond. I actually think diversity is a bad thing. I think when you start setting out to say we need this representation, we need this number of people to be this skin color, or we need this number of people to be this gender, or we need this number of people to be using wheelchairs. And there is nothing about your work that is specifically inherently dependent upon those things. Like, if I were to want to write a story about somebody in a wheelchair, then I would probably talk to somebody in a wheelchair. If I'm working in a tech company like Valve, and we has nothing to do with race, nothing to do with gender, nothing to do with disability, nothing to do with LGBTQ, there should absolutely, for no reason, be anyone at that company that is compelled to be any of those things. And the company itself should reject every effort to try to impose this arbitrary standard, because guess what? The standard will be ever shifting. And the moment that you let these freaks in, they're going to be hiring more people like themselves, and you're going to notice, whether it's a month, whether it's a year, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you're going to notice, I don't recognize my company and everything is worse. Ubisoft did this. And there are talks that if Assassin's Creed Shadows doesn't do well, which it won't, they're going to be looking to sell or carve themselves up like a turkey. They're on the chopping block. Why? Because they stopped making good games, they focused way too much on microtransactions, and they went all in on hiring and promoting diversity. And it killed them in the end. It always does. Because diversity, equity, and inclusion is cancer. It's a fatal diagnosis. It takes too much work for a lot of even these big companies to be able to pull out of.
More diversity doesn't make something better, and it doesn't make it worse either. It's just simply a collection of people.
And there are already more middle-aged white guys in the games industry than any other group of people, so...
Well, the premise of this is that it's a problem that there are middle-aged white guys in the gaming industry. I think that if you said there's a lot of young black women here, like, I would say that's racist.
No. Well, It would depend. It would completely and totally depend. I don't think it's just instinctually racist. Because if somebody is making an observation, like, wait a minute, there's the World of Warcraft, for example. If you have a design team around World of Warcraft, and everyone there is a black lesbian woman, yeah, someone could be like, yeah, I think that something's wrong here. I think there are too many young black lesbian women working on this game for older, nerdy white men. It wouldn't make the statement racist. I think it's all in perspective. Like, you can make an observation based on something that's true, as opposed to saying, oh, there's too many of this type of people because I don't like them, sort of thing.
First of all, you need to have actually seen them do that work in the first place. And secondly, if you have seen it, you need to understand that work enough to recognize it as something worthwhile.
Do you really think that the people that work at a company that you have admitted only hire the best of the best and creates the highest profit per employee at $19 million? Do you really think that those people can't recognize good work and you can? How delusional and stupid could you possibly be?
The most stupid, the most delusional.
It's hilarious that they even think that they can.
It would be hilarious if it weren't so absolutely soul-crushingly sad. Because far too many people in the corporate world listen to freaks like this. Rather than laughing them, like, for example, my approach may be a little bit extreme, but I think if somebody comes into your office and they're like, we need to have quotas, we need diversity, equity, inclusion, I think it should be like it was in the old days. I think you should be able to dump that person with a boatload of tar and then dump them with a bunch of feathers. You tar and feather them. And you say, get the hell out, you freak. And then everyone in the office laughs as they run away in shame and disgrace. I think that's the appropriate thing. You tar and feather them so as they're running out, they look like a giant chicken. I mean, is that not reasonable? You're coming in here and you're saying that you should adopt my racist cult-like ideology that is pernicious and evil and deranged and basically reduces people down to their immutable characteristics and says that this other group, which are white men, straight white men, they're evil, they're bad, which they're not, by the way. They're inherently good. I shouldn't say inherently good, but yeah, when you're talking about this structure of company, this is the most successful model that we see out there. This guy is promoting to Valve the same business model as Ubisoft. And Ubisoft bought into it, and they're failing, and they're going to go out of business very soon. And Valve said no, and they're still the biggest and best when it comes to gaming. I think that in and of itself proves what I'm talking about is true.
Can evaluate this better than they can.
And it's going to be so much harder to hire someone who is a woman or isn't white or any of the things that isn't your average Valve employee profile.
Yeah, I think this right here, like videos like this, are the most corrosive and the most effective at radicalizing people against DEI or like liberal policies than Nick Fuentes, Sam Hyde, or Tony Robinson put together.
I think Tommy Robinson. Yeah, I think that he's correct. I think that these videos do an excellent job of recruiting people against them. Because, I mean, everything about this guy, everything about the way he looks, everything about the way he talks, everything about his politics, all of that is completely and totally rejected by reality and by normal people just living out their daily lives.
There's nothing in an overt, sinister sense that's discriminatory about the Valve hiring process.
Okay, then case closed.
All right. The problem here is that there's a comma and not a period. Why is there 2 more minutes? Is it the credits?
Except in the way that all hiring processes select for people that are like the people doing the hiring.
So if the problem is that there's a bunch of people in this demographic that are hiring based off of their race, then the solution is to influence and bring in a different demographic of people that will hire based off of their race instead. We have to fight racism with racism.
Multiple current and former...
Well, so here's the difference, though, Asman. One of them is racist and one of them is not. It's not racist to look at somebody's qualifications and say, this is the best person for the job, and hire them, and all the people just happen to be white. Versus what these people are doing, saying, you need to let women, minorities, LGBTQ, degenerates, and other weirdos into your company, and then they're going to hire other weirdos, degenerates, and LGBTQ, and people of color, and women, and all that stuff. That is racist and sexist. That is discrimination, but the other one is not.
Employees, they believe this issue is not being addressed because Valve's leadership simply does not understand it.
The people that run this multi-billion-dollar company that effectively has a monopoly almost on PC gaming, they just don't understand this. Yeah.
It's not that they're knowingly or explicitly sexist or racist or homophobic or anything.
It's just bias. Okay, so then they are. Okay, so can you prove it? No, but they are.
Should we make it easier for people of color to join the company? They'll just be like, why? I feel like that's the dividing line.
Well, that's a good question. Why should it be easier for a person of any race to join the company versus a person of another race to join the company? In what form of discrimination is that good?
Some of this frustration spilled out into a wider discussion.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. We're going to get through this together.
Within the company after the murder of George Floyd in early 20...
Yeah, George Floyd murder. Anyway, yeah, I'm not going to get into that, but oh my God. I imagine idolizing George Floyd. Holy crap. This narrative is just one thing leads to another. You notice that? One thing leads to another. If you're retarded in one area, you're going to be retarded in another.
2020, as a group of employees within Valve pushed for the company to make a public statement in support of the Black Lives Matter movement.
That's right, of course. Because what more important thing needs to happen for a company to outwardly state that they support Black Lives Matter? The company is not your platform to push a social agenda.
Oh, no, but it is. Don't you understand? These narcissistic, brain-dead imbeciles, they actually believe that they have some kind of control over these companies, that the company should basically just affirm all of their political beliefs, no matter how stupid and reductive and racist and regressive they are. That's why I tell you that these people are genuinely amongst the worst people that you will ever see.
Only reason why companies push social agendas is because they think that the social agenda will cause them to make more money.
And there were...
Nope, Asmongold is wrong there. Absolutely wrong. That could be one reason. The other reason is that the company has been infiltrated by freaks and the management is too afraid to make the necessary changes. They're afraid that too many people are going to walk out. They're afraid that people are going to sabotage the product. When you've let this cancerous cult into your business, there are a lot of people at the upper echelon that are just simply too afraid to do the right thing. And that is a reality. And they could be true believers. That is also another part of it. They could be true believers. That no matter how much evidence is presented that this doesn't work, they're going to double and triple down.
Were also people who felt incredibly passionate, regardless of their own individual political convictions, that Valve should not and must not do so.
Yeah, exactly, because it's not a political action company. It's not what its goal is. The thing is that I'm really glad to see videos like this be completely pretty much rebuked. People can realize that this is just basically discrimination, but in a different direction, so that means it's okay. Oh no, Valve hires competent people. Yeah, how's that going for them? So basically, whatever they're doing is working really well. What? Look.
Yeah, so the employees are paid 7 times more than Apple, 12 times more than Google. And there's a problem with that apparently because the people getting paid are white and they're male. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad that you stuck with me through the end. To the end, rather. Yeah, this is what we're talking about. If you're ever curious, if you ever hear one of these streamers or content creators gaslight you and try to tell you that this sort of stuff doesn't exist, just show them this video. Show them the video of these people in their own words talking about what they actually believe, that it is problematic for a successful company to be successful because they're too white. Yeah, that's where we're at. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a wonderful, blessed day. I hope that you continue to support the channel. I know that a lot of people have come in very recently. Don't worry, I'm sure I'll do something to give you a reason to unsubscribe shortly. But until then, put your feet up, enjoy the content. My YouTube community tab is where I usually shitpost stuff. Have a wonderful, blessed day, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you next time.